Thank you, Leader.
So I'm going to give you a brief outline of parliamentary procedure, why it is important, and how it can help you during a meeting. So bear with me. So can you see my slide?
Yeah.
Okay. So why have we parliamentary procedures? So when I go to meetings, I've attended a lot of meetings in the past, and I have been a chairperson of certain committees. And some of the things, these are some of the things that really irked me in the past. Long-winded meetings going on forever and ever, no structure, lack of regular meetings, meetings not being called on a regular basis, no notice given of meetings, maybe a couple of days notice, so you haven't got time to prepare, lack of information throughout the meeting, secrecy between just a few. You might have 10 at a meeting and maybe only 2 or 3 really control the whole thing, as I say there in the point afterwards. I've also attended meetings where there's no agenda. People just turn up, right, what are we going to talk about? And then, of course, you have the person who has no say at all. The chairperson of the meeting only invites a few people to speak. When you're chairing a meeting, you must observe the room. Who is quiet in the corner, because their point of view could be very, very, very important. So be always inclusive of everybody around the table. So that's the definition of parliamentary procedure. It's common throughout the world. Conduct at meetings that allow everybody to be heard and to make decisions without confusion. So when you leave any meeting, you should be clear in what action is to be taken before you arrive back at the next meeting. So very, very important. And I suppose one of the important ones that we use commonly throughout the world is Robert's Rules of Order. So no matter where you go in the world, if you attend a meeting, it should be conducted in the same order or fashion based on Robert's Rules of Order, or other. There's also Henderson's rules. It's a time-tested method that's used for years and years, and it's updated on a regular basis. I think the current edition is edition 13, if I'm correct. So after this session, I will be opening for questions and answers session. So listening skills are very important when someone is giving a presentation. So are you observing what's being said? You're taking an odd note here and there for a question afterwards. So just to put in that. So when you attend a meeting, this should be this is normally the regular order of business for any meeting. So you arrive at the venue or online, and as chairperson, you open the meeting. To start any meeting, you must have a quorum, because without a quorum, any actions that you take will not be binding. Therefore, if you have 11 people, more than half is a quorum. It's not 50% plus 1, because 50% plus 1 is 6.5 of 11, and plus 1 is 7.5. So there's no such thing as 7.5 people. So it's over half. So then you have to adopt your agenda for the meeting. So you can use the simple words, is there any objection to the adoption of the agenda? Hearing none, you move on. If there is an objection, you listen to the person that has an objection, and they may want to add something to the agenda. Then you go on to the approval of the minutes of the previous meeting. So this is very important as well. because the approval of the minutes are the official record of what happened at any meeting. So the secretary takes the minutes at a meeting and preferably sends them out in advance to each member of the committee. So you have time to look at them. And then when you come to the meeting, if you have any issues with the minutes, you raise them there and then. So after the approval of the minutes, you move on then to your reports, officer reports, and any standing committee that you may have. Then you have unfinished business on your agenda, and this is something that you couldn't complete at your last meeting. Say, for instance, towards the meeting, you ran out of time, you had only an hour for your meeting. So you move a motion to carry the business forward to the next meeting. Then the next on the agenda is new business. So this is something that's new for the actual meeting you're at. And you need a main motion to bring new business before a meeting. And then closing the meeting, that means you adjourn. You adjourn the meeting and set a date. It's very important. If you have a regular meeting, set a date for your next meeting. Do it there at the end of the meeting. The keys to successful meetings. And this is what is important. Agenda out on time, at least 2 weeks ahead of the meeting. Unless it's an emergency meeting where you don't have time to send it out within 2 weeks. So everybody has time then to look at the agenda and be ready and prepared. We're going to speak about such an issue. I'll do my homework before I arrive at a meeting. It's a good idea to invite people to submit issues for the agenda ahead of the meeting. Have a code of conduct document. And I think any large committees should have one of these. And what I mean by that is how long you get to speak during a meeting. Have a few motions in there that are important, and we'll look at them later on. How often you're going to have your meetings, the length of time approximately, and other issues that you may deem important. Now, as chairperson, you're like a conductor of an orchestra. You're there keeping the whole thing flowing, but it is important to remain impartial. You move the meeting along nicely, keeping it to time, and be firm with people if they get out of order. If there's somebody dominating the meeting, it's up to you to say, hold on, our standing rules say you have 2 minutes to speak on such a motion. If order breaks out, it's up to you to bring it back in order. So be firm and fair to everybody, and you'll have a very well run meeting. As I discussed earlier about somebody that may not be speaking up, be inclusive, encourage participation. The quiet person in the corner or the shy person, get them out of their comfort zone and maybe speak to them beforehand. At the last meeting, I see you didn't get involved. Maybe today you will bring up an issue, or because the quiet person sometimes has a very important issue that may be helpful or beneficial to the organization. Control speaking time, so you can set time limits on speaking there. If you have a main motion, you could allow 2 minutes per person. And you could have a limit on the time of debate for instance, 10 minutes. And if after 10 minutes, you need more time, you can move a motion to extend the limit of debate, but you must get permission of the meeting as well. And of course, the important thing is set a date and time for our next meeting. This is crucial, really, so that everyone goes away right. They have it in their diary. We're meeting in a month's time or 6 weeks. So for any motion that's brought before the assembly, you must have a mover. That's the person that puts the motion together. And for any main motion, you need a seconder, because one person cannot bring something before the assembly without somebody else agreeing to debate it. So that's, unless you have a committee that moves a motion. And with a committee, you have 3 or 4 people maybe. So you just bring the main motion before the assembly. There's no need for a seconder there. But where an individual brings a main motion, you need a seconder. And to second a motion, you don't have to agree with it, with the sentiments of the motion. All you're doing is you're getting it on the table for debate. Once the motion is moved and seconded, the chairperson states the question. And once it's stated, it's open for debate. So each and every one around the table has the option to debate the motion. And after debate finishes, if it's 10 minutes you have set out, or 15, then you take a vote. And you can do a voice vote, you can do a hands up, or a standing vote, or if it's a very important and a personal motion in relation to disciplinary action against somebody, then you take a private vote. Has the chairperson the right to speak to a motion? Not while in the chair. So if you want to speak to the motion as a chairperson, you vacate the chair, you ask your vice president, your chairperson assistant, or the secretary not the secretary, the next in line, to sit in the chair while you debate the motion. But normally, as a chairperson, you would stay neutral. And at the end of that, when the debate is over, you sum up then, and you put it to a vote. Try and stay neutral if you can, so that nobody sees you weighing one way or the other, because you need a balanced outcome to any motion. So during a meeting, these are motions that may help you. Take a recess. Take a bit of time out if things get out of order. And this gets very heated. So as a chairperson, you can say, right, we're going to take a recess for 5 minutes. And once you get the agreement of the meeting, you take a 5-minute cooling off period, and maybe when you come back in, everybody is in good form. And you can limit or extend limit of debate, as I said there. So if you have a lot of motions on the agenda, a lot of business, you can say, right, for X, Y, and Z, we're going to have 5 minutes discussion. But sometimes a motion gets very intense and it's very, very important to your organization. Maybe you want to, if there's a lot of speakers, you may seek the permission of the meeting to extend the time. Of course, any main motion can be amended, and that is important as well. For instance, if I said I move that our annual membership fee increases from €80 to €100, and you might say 100 is a bit too much, you could amend it, say I move that our membership fee increase from €80 to €90. So that's an amendment. So you replace one word with the other. You can strike out, add to any motion to amend it, and you can amend it a second time if you wanted to start at a certain date. I move to increase our membership from €80 to €90, starting on the 1st of June or 1st of July. So that's it's very specific. A motion cannot be just a question you're asking. It has to be specific. So you're very specific there. You're saying you want to move it from 80 to 90, and you want it to start on the 1st of July. A point of order for members around the table: if the chairperson is not adhering to the rules of the meeting, you can call the chairperson to order. Say, for instance, you were trying to speak and you have your hand up and somebody else is called before you, and they hadn't their hand up before you. So that's a point of order. Mr. Chairperson, I feel I had my hand up, I should be allowed to speak first. Point of information, this is very, very important as well, because if someone is discussing a motion and you're unclear as to what they mean, you can raise a point of information. And every time you're not speaking to the person that's moving the motion, you're speaking to the chairperson at all times. Mr. Chairperson, I'd like more information in relation to the amount of money that's going to be spent on buying furniture, for example. Another very important one is to refer to a committee. So if you feel there's a motion before you and you'd like more discussion or more research to be done into the motion, and it would be a bad thing to pass it today or reject it, then you can refer it to a committee for further review. And that the committee would come back then at the next meeting and give a report on their findings. So that's a very, very good one to use if in doubt. And of course, a parliamentary inquiry, you're at a meeting and you're not sure of how to move a motion or what to do next. You can say, Mr. or Madam Chairperson, I raise a parliamentary inquiry. I'm not sure what to do here, how to raise a motion. And the chairperson, the important for the chairperson to have a good understanding of parliamentary procedure. It's a great honor to chair a meeting. And it's a great thing to have on your CV. You're chairperson of a meeting, you're controlling, you're planning, you're organizing. So that's my brief outline of parliamentary procedure. It's there's an awful lot to it. This is the little book I use. If you can see there, Robert's Rules of Order. It's that's the brief version. There's a bigger one as well with 700 pages, which I'm studying as well. But for anybody chairing a meeting, that's a very good one to start off with. It's only about €6 or €7, so it's well worth having. So thank you for listening. And if there's any questions, I'll try and answer them. So thank you.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
Yes.
What are the general qualifications of a chairperson?
General qualifications of a chairperson: that you're a person that the committee have faith in. The members of a club have faith in, they have good knowledge of what's going on within a club or organization. They're clear and articulate. And as I say, you have a basic understanding of parliamentary procedure. And as I said, you're like a conductor of a meeting. So you must be calm under pressure, because some meetings can get quite robust, as I have experienced myself in my lifetime, but you must remain calm. And as I say, try remain impartial. So a calm characteristic. Knowledge of the club or organization. Probably someone that's in it for quite some time is helpful as well. And good interpersonal and communication skills. So you'll gain all that through Toastmasters. Thank you for that question.
Do we have another question?
Can you show the picture of the book again? I couldn't see it because it was kind of blurred from the camera.
Okay. Can you see that? Okay. Yeah, it's a simplified version of all the rules and procedures. It's an easy read when you're lying in bed at night time before you go to sleep, maybe. Yeah, it's well worth having. If you're a secretary as well, and minute taking is very important. How to take minutes. I've seen minutes that go on for ages and ages, 3 or 4 pages, no need. Just the basic actions It's not what's said, it's the actions that are taken during a meeting. So keep them brief. You have the date and time of the meeting, the name of the organization, who was present, any motions that were moved, actions taken, and set the date for the next meeting. There's no need to write in that Melton said this and she said that and Billy said this and Louise said that, and no need of all that. I've seen that in minutes. Absolutely load of taking up time and space. Any other question?
Larry, I believe in Australia we use Renton's rules. Robert's rules are an American parliamentary procedure.
Yeah. Well, as I say, there's different formats. There's Henderson's and there's the one what do you call it? Renton's?
Renton's
Yeah,
rules.
yeah, never heard of them, Louise, now. But of course, that's a Munster, but they're all sort of structured on the same idea.
Yeah.
So they are. But you need to have some guidelines. So if I go over to Australia, I would say the meetings would run kind of similar. I couldn't walk into your meeting and start talking away without you pulling me up.
Probably not.
Yeah, but control is important, and the chairperson has a vital role to play. And a good chairperson will include everybody. They'll keep it in time, and they'll keep and be when you're opening a meeting, be cheerful and have a bit of humor. Don't be serious. Right, we're here to do business. Have a bit of fun. How are you all today? You're very welcome. Great to see you. And you're starting off on a very good foot then. But if you come in grumpy and growly, and you must remember in a very large meeting, you may have one or two that are in there to cause a bit of friction. You might have a plant. We'll test this person out. They might want you out of the chair. So they'll disrupt every meeting you go to. But it's how you handle them is the key. And normally people love to see you. You don't throw them out of a meeting, but just call them to order. Sorry, you're not adhering to our rules of order as we outlined at the start of the meeting. Don't put anybody down. Be positive at all times. Anybody here ever move a motion?
We've had a number of motions moved at our club, and we have a very good parliamentary procedure or parliamentarian in one of the attendees here today, and that's Michael Oxman. And he will always call us to order.
Yeah, very good. And if you see something that needs to be changed within an organization, it's good to raise a motion and get debate going, even though you may not be successful with your motion, but at least you're getting debate on the issue. And sometimes when you might be totally against the motion, but sometimes your idea may cause a motion to be amended. Actually, that's a good point you raised there. So don't be afraid to speak up, and no point in going away from a meeting and say, sorry, I should have said this and I should have said that. When you're at the meeting, that's the time, because that's the official business that is put into your minutes. So the secretary and the chairperson have to run in tandem, be in each other's ear between meetings, and be well prepared. Preparation is key for any meeting.
So Larry, do you expect all motions to be in writing?
Absolutely, preferably. And send them on in advance so that people have time to be ready and ready for discussion. Now, a motion can come up during a meeting as well. Say, if somebody, one of the officers is giving a report, and out of that report, a main motion could be formatted as well during the meeting. But preferably for any meeting, send them in advance. Sometime for our Toastmasters District 71 conference or council meeting, we seek motions 1 month in advance. And after that timeline, then you cannot submit them. Because for a large organization like that, you need some sort of organization and structure to your meeting. So allowing motions in at the last minute is only throwing the whole thing out of sync. Because normally motions have to be looked at by a subcommittee as well to see are they okay to go through. We got about 11 motions this year for our council meeting, and I only allowed about three of them to get through. The rest could not be addressed by the district. They could only be addressed by Toastmasters International in America, the conference in the Bahamas this year. Or some of them were not motions, they weren't worded properly.
I was going to ask about a commotion motion within the club level. Do you do those pretend motions just so your members get to practice speaking for, against, and voting on motions?
Yes, for instance, I'm giving training in our district twice a year normally, and we have about 10 attendees. And I always say, go back to your clubs and practice parliamentary procedure.
Mm.
For instance, we had our club AGM recently, so I put in 2 motions. One was about membership fees and one was about time of our meetings. So we had a debate on that, and people saw how now the chairperson this year of our meeting, he had no idea how to run the meeting. So I had to pull him up a few times. So I think he was a very experienced person in Toastmasters. He has over 20 years experience and a business person, and yet he hadn't got the proper credentials to run a meeting, despite all the experiences. And you might think, oh, that person is so experienced. They have life experiences behind them. They should be able to chair a meeting. No, it's a skill, and a skill well worth learning. And for instance, in my job, I worked for the Department of Agriculture, and I was chairperson of our local branch of the union. And as chairperson, I was going up negotiating with the department in relation to issues in our job. And there I was putting myself before the top people in the department. So they could see my skills as a chairperson, my negotiating skills, which helped me in my career. So that's why I never turned down the opportunity. For any student here listening, there's openings in life. Don't be afraid to jump in. And if you're doing it for your first time, that's okay. You'll learn as you go along. But the main thing is to have a proper understanding of the procedures. And if you only, we all spend time on our phones and scrolling, and it could be 2 hours, 3 hours per day. Read that book in 3 hours and have it beside you at any meeting. And it will get you out of a lot of difficulty. So how are we on time, Melton?